Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. I tweet to archive my best ideas. Since 2009, I've posted more than 5,000 tweets. A year ago, I posted on Psychology Today 30 of my most useful practical tips, and I've decided to update them. Here are 42 of what I believe are my most useful new tweets. The first group is about communication. When your strongest argument is much stronger than your second strongest argument, it's often wise to stop after number one, or to repeat or paraphrase number one, rather than present number two, because the latter, number two, would dilute the persuasive power of your contention. Next, wait a half second to 1 second after your conversation partner finishes speaking. That conveys that you're considering what they said and not just waiting for them to finish so you could hold forth. Interrupting them does the opposite. If you're more ideationally fluent than the person you're talking with, when trying to get him or her to decide on something, you might ask, which of these two or three seem wisest? When a person doesn't take your advice, take solace in your possibly having planted a seed. Surprisingly often, weeks or months later, that person will implement your idea, maybe even thinking it was his or her own. The next group of tweets is about personal growth. Don't compete with others. Just try to be a little better every hour, forgiving yourself when you're not. I was quoted recently in the New York Times, and I said that the path forward is normally marked not by excessive rumination, but by low-risk actions. Always search for the point at which the risk-reward ratio of additional rumination or data collection is outweighed by the risk-reward of making a decision, taking a low-risk action, and then revising based on the initial results. In short, ready, fire, aim. It's perhaps surprising that an effective response to even a serious setback, such as getting fired, a death in the family, or so on, is often just, 1, is there a lesson to be learned? And 2, replace grieving about it with taking the next step forward. In short, lesson, if there is one, and baby step. Lesson, baby step. When you're stuck, try saying aloud what your wiser twin would do in the situation. Whether you're leaving your job, a relationship, or even the street you're walking down, aim to leave it a little bit better than you found it. Don't compete on the trivial. Looks, sports, fancy meals, cars. You know that your life is better led if you focus on more important things. It's dispiriting how much human energy goes into the superficial rather than substance. Marketing, personal appearance, designer labels. Ugh. Books and articles. They're such trusty, interesting self-enhancement companions. Lack of confidence is sometimes justified. In such cases, the cure is in finding an area or two in which you have at least the potential to be competent, and then devote yourself to becoming so. Then your confidence will increase legitimately. There was a meta-analysis, and by the way, for all of these where I'm citing research, the transcript of this will be first on medium.com today, and then on Psychology Today in a few days, and you can get the link to the research that I'm citing. So in any case here, a meta-analysis found that cognitive training doesn't make people any smarter. Next, am I the only person who thinks that TED Talks are overrated? Their required formula converts interesting people to robots, leaching the imperfections, the humanity that differentiate a talk from text. Speakers, list a few talking points, and then trust that you'll do better by extemporizing. I'm well aware I'm reading here. Part of it is I'm not even sure why. Sometimes I extemp, but I kind of just wanted to make sure you got the content. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just a hypocrite. Pop psych cheerleaders. Ugh. Their formula? You're fabulous. Just follow these steps. Have a growth mindset. Have grit. Power because these pop psych cheerleaders are at Stanford, Harvard, and so on, we genuflect. But fair-minded data, logic, and my experience with thousands of clients says that stuff is hype. And again, I have links to data supporting these contentions. Psychology Today said, in Psychology Today, there was a quote, "We're primed to think that there is," I guess the guy's name was Jonathan Wai, W-A-I, "we're primed to think that there's a better version of ourselves out there just waiting to be discovered. That one weird trick can change our lives," end quote. It's usually wiser to accept your basic self. Find a place where your basic self can thrive, and then make modest incremental efforts to improve. The next set of tweets is about work and career. The pressure to win, whether in politics or in sales, puts pressure on truth and ethics. Speaking of salespeople, stop selling and start teaching and sharing. You'll be more successful, make a bigger contribution, and feel better about yourself. You have many more, often more desirable career choices if you just choose to live in modest housing. The advantages of such careers, for example, creative careers, are often far in excess of the benefits derived from Tony or Diggs. Public speakers. In 2 of my 3 most recent speaking events, in the sound check, the audio guy said my volume was fine. But after my talk, patrons said they had a hard time hearing. So, when you begin speaking, ask the audience to raise their hand if they hear you well. In today's lauded collaborative leadership style, a leader can still order supervisees to do something without a lot of mollycoddling, consensus building, turgidity, and ending up with a lowest common denominator plan. Often, you can just gather the needed information and with a positive tone explain your decision. Done. Crisp. Reading aloud, as I'm doing here, is a useful skill and not so easy to do well. Key is to imitate natural speech. Speed up, slow down, pause, raise and lower your voice. Some of my most successful and contributory clients feel their spouses hurt their ability to make a difference. The spouse wants to spend more, which forces the earner into activities that are more lucrative than contributory. That kind of spouse also demands proportionate help with domestic tasks, which those clients believe is not the wisest, most contributory use of his or her time. Many media messages urge working less, so-called work-life balance, work smart, not hard, and so on. Yet studies find shockingly low percentages of work time are spent actually working. 2 hours and 23 minutes a day. Again, just go to the medium.com or Psychology Today article that will be posted in a couple of days to get the research on this. So as a result of that, it's not much of a wonder why so many employers automate and hire as little as possible. Job seekers, be a statesman, not a salesman. That's an under-discussed key to landing a good job. Reveal a weakness, or even 2, that would mitigate against you doing the job well. That will eliminate you from jobs at which you'll likely fail, and gain the interviewer's trust, which is crucial to your being selected for a job you would do well. This is a quote from Adam Grant, professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. To understand the culture of a company before you join, ask people to tell you stories about things that happened there but wouldn't happen elsewhere. A client asked me how I managed to answer my emails promptly. It's because I recognize that behind the bits and bytes of an email is a human being who would feel valued and respected if I answered promptly, and they'd feel disregarded if I didn't. Answering those emails, in my judgment, is more important than, for example, my having fun. Finally, there is some robust research into whether diversity training actually works. Unfortunately, it's not very promising. Again, the articles have links on that. A single dad with a solid employment track record got laid off and cannot find a decent job. He was a finalist for a good job, didn't get it, and then learned that the person who got it was of a desired race and gender and had a much worse track record. I got teary because that has become common. How foolish we are that, especially in romance, but also in the workplace, we let appearance trump substance. The next little section is on men's issues. This time I only have two that I chose to include. When in the 1970s the male to female college degree ratio was 60-40, there was massive redress. Now, when it's the reverse, 40-60, no one seems to care. On the contrary, 92% of sex-specific scholarships are reserved for women. Why? The suicide rate for white men is zooming. That is not surprising given society's mind molders, that is, the media and the colleges, relentlessly portraying this hard-working sector as evil, foolish, and privileged. If the situation were reversed, wouldn't there be massive spending to reduce female suicide? Why not for white men? Oh boy. Let's continue and see what happens. The next section is on education. People seek out others and especially travel to enrich their lives. Yet without even leaving home, we can experience the best thinkers and entertainers in books, magazines, and TV, and more broadly still with the amazing internet, especially with Google search. Videos, movies, articles, all curated. Instructors try to compensate for students' lack of talent by breaking down the indivisible into parts. Real musicians, writers, and artists don't use analytic and synthetic models. Mainly they organically create. If that's not you, beware. Instead, focus your efforts on your natural strengths. Assessment data suggest no changes in critical thinking from freshman to senior year. And a more comprehensive assessment of cognitive changes from liberal education is also dispiriting. Again, links to all these will be on the Medium article, which is a transcript of this, as well as in a couple of days, Psychology Today's posted there. The Economist, this is a sub-headline of a tweet that The Economist posted, quote, "Improving education has proven harder than making progress in health research and vaccine delivery," end quote. And that tweet yielded a comment from Psychology Today blogger, former Duke research scientist, who now holds an endowed chair in education policy at the University of Arkansas. That's Jonathan Y., whom I mentioned earlier. Quote, "Bill Gates said that software is an IQ business and hired accordingly on candidate characteristics. Thus, the finding that test scores have been harder to budge is unsurprising. A path forward is to start with student characteristics, then education." Harvard Business Review, quote, "One thing entrepreneurs can agree on, you can learn most outside the classroom and from your own peers." Quote from Bloomberg, "Student loan delinquencies surged last year, hitting consecutive records. Unpaid student debt also rose to the highest ever." Art school, 6-year, 6-figure summer camp. Consider foregoing the tax deduction and give to individuals to pay for training likely to have a strong ripple effect, but where financial aid isn't available. For example, pay for a low-income gifted kid to get tutoring. To find a kid, ask a counselor at a school serving low-income kids. And finally, I wonder if I had dropped out in the 9th grade, kept learning, but only what I cared to, and then began writing essays, giving essays verbally like this, perhaps selling the essays in books and booklets on the street, and posting them on the net, might my life, without school and employer ill treatment, have been more satisfying and contributory? I wonder about that. In any case, I'm Marty Nemko. Thank you for watching. Feel free to give us a thumbs up, or if needed, a thumbs down. Share, comment, subscribe. In any event, I am Marty Nemko.